What is up, guys? It is the Bluebloods back with another Week 9 college football preview right here on YouTube, man. So if you're new, smash that subscribe button. Go ahead and hit the like button and comment your score predictions for this matchup below. But we have a huge Big Ten matchup this weekend that is going to play a huge role in determining who comes out of this wild Big Ten East division race. We got the number 20 Penn State Nittany Lions traveling to Columbus to take on the number 5 ranked Ohio State Buckeyes. And the Buckeyes right now are an 18.5 point favorite right now over the Nittany Lions on a game that kicks off in prime time, 6:30 p.m. Central Time on ABC. And we currently have in this division, in the Big Ten East, we have four top 20 teams fighting for the crown. And this weekend in Columbus and East Lansing, a big step forward is going to happen in determining who's going to be the favorite in this division. Now, this is really a must win for both teams in the grand scheme of things. Now, on the Ohio State side, it's a must win because a loss here will put them at two losses and virtually eliminate them from any college football playoff discussion. Now, they would still be in the running for the Big Ten, but they would not make the playoffs with two losses right now. While the Nittany Lions, they're pretty much already done in the college football playoff race, but this is a Big Ten, make or break game for them. If they lose this game, they're probably not going to make it to Indianapolis for the Big Ten championship. Now, setting the stage here, the Buckeyes enter this matchup 6-1, 4-0 in the conference. Their only loss of the season coming to Oregon, but this team has been playing on another level these past few weeks, in which the Buckeyes have outscored their last four opponents 231 to 44. And I mean, it all starts with CJ Stroud, who has found his rhythm. The running game's been outstanding. The defense has slowly improved from their slow start to the season. So, Ohio State, this Ryan Day squad is clicking on all cylinders as we enter this matchup. Now, on the other side of of this game is the Nittany Lions, who 3 weeks ago, this would have been a top five matchup. But now this team is on a two-game losing streak, which includes their non-overtime loss to Illinois last week in Happy Valley. And this team has to find some offensive production this weekend. That's been the number one question mark about this Penn State team is can their offense put points on the board? But their defense is one of the best in the country, and that's something that will probably have to be leaned on this weekend if Penn State expects to pull off the huge road upset over Penn State. Now, the Buckeyes have dominated this series. I mean, not really dominated recent history, but they hold a series lead 21 to 14. But they've won 16 of the last 21 games between these two teams and are currently on a 4-game win streak. And the last Penn State win coming in 2016, but it's so competitive year in and year out where three of these four wins on this win streak have come by 3 points or less. So anything can happen this weekend, but the stage is set here. Let's get into some keys to the game. The key for the Buckeyes could be a number of things. But based on how Illinois took advantage of the rush defense of Penn State and rushed for over 300 yards, I would imagine we're going to see a heavy dose of this Buckeyes rushing attack. And then we're going to see that allow CJ Stroud to ease into this game, make some plays downfield, especially for an offense putting up over 560 yards per game and are leading the country right now with near 50 points a game being average. So when you look at the rushing attack, though, the Buckeyes have one of the most explosive units in the country. I mean, this rushing attack is averaging over 200 on the ground per game, but they're averaging as a team over 6 yards per carry for the season. And when everyone's healthy, which they should be this weekend, they have a three-headed monster where all three of them can have a big day at any time. But it all starts with this is one of their breakout players, Treyvion Henderson, man. He has had one hell of a year at almost 700 rushing yards, over 8 yards per carry, almost 9, and 11 rushing touchdowns. He has been one of their X factors this season. You also have Mayan Williams with over 300 yards rushing, over 7 yards per carry, and 2 rushing touchdowns. And then the kind of rotational experience guys, Master Teague, who's coming back from injury. Ryan Day said he should be available this weekend after missing that Indiana game with a minor injury. He's put up over 240 on the ground and has 3 rushing touchdowns while averaging almost 6 yards per carry. Now, when you dig a little bit deeper, the rushing attack has been in its best when running outside, off the tackle, off the edge, out just outside of the defense. They're going to try to hit the edge and get upfield and go make plays just because they're that explosive. That's where these running backs have really shined. With off tackle runs this year, they've rushed for over 600 yards, over 8.5 yards per carry, six rushing touchdowns, over 30 first downs generated, and 22 explosive runs of 10 or more yards this season off tackle. That is where Ohio State is going to say, we're more athletic than you. We're going to beat you to the edge. And when our running backs get into open space, they're going to make you miss, and they're going to go make a big play happen. And that's what they're going to bet on this weekend. I'm expecting Treyvion Henderson to have a huge game this weekend. And that's really going to be one of the X factors to watch this weekend for this Buckeyes rushing attack. Now, the other aspect of this offense, clearly CJ Stroud. He's really established himself as one of the Heisman favorites, right up there with a Bryce Young, a Matt Corral, a Kenny Pickett. And he has been playing some of the best football in the country over these past few weeks. And if he is on his game, this Buckeyes offense becomes one of the most unstoppable in the country. I mean, he's thrown for almost 2,000 yards, over 12 yards an attempt, 22 passing touchdowns, and only 3 interceptions. Right now, Stroud ranks top 10 in passing yards per game and passing touchdowns. He's second in passing efficiency and has a top 25 completion percentage in college football. So he's putting up elite numbers right now in his first year as a starting quarterback for the Buckeyes. And the number one thing for Stroud that really separates him from a lot of young QBs is how efficiently he pushes the ball down the field. Over 50% of his throws are in the intermediate to deep ball passing range, and he has a 92 or higher PFF passing grade in both intermediate and deep ball passes. When combine these, so intermediates 10 to 19 yards, deep balls are 20 plus. When you combine these two areas, this is where Stroud's thrown for over 1,200 of his yards, over 14 yards of completion, 17 of his touchdowns, 15 big-time throws, and over 56 first downs generated for this offense. That is what makes this Ohio State offense so hard to stop, is not only can they run the ball efficiently, CJ Stroud isn't just dumping off. He's hitting these playmakers like a Chris Olave, a Garrett Wilson, some of these wide receivers deep down the field, and they're able to really test every single level of your defense. And that's what makes this Ohio State offense one of the most efficient and explosive in the country. So that's going to be the key for Ohio State, is just get the run game going and then allow CJ Stroud to work off of that and just beat Penn State up over the top, which Auburn has some opportunities, in that game, didn't execute them. Illinois really didn't have a great passing game, but they were able to run the ball, which is why I picked that. And then also you look at that Iowa game. Yes, Penn State played well, but late in the game, Iowa was able to establish some things with Spencer Petras down the field and actually hit the tight end for what ended up being the game-winning touchdown. So that's what Ohio State's going to do this weekend. The key for the Nittany Lions, though, is counterintuitive to a point, because it should be the rushing attack, because that's how Oregon beat Ohio State. That's what Minnesota did to keep it close. That's what Tulsa did in the first half. But it can't be that, because Penn State has been so inconsistent this year at running the football. So really the key lies in Sean Clifford's ability to distribute the ball, make plays for the offense, because usually a lot of teams like to use the run to set up the pass. But for Penn State, they're going to have to do the opposite this weekend. They're going to have to use the pass to set up the run, which is much harder to do for most teams. And so that's going to be the challenge for Penn State this weekend. When you look at the offense, they're averaging 372 yards per game right now, but they've really relied on Clifford's passing ability, and it really cost them last week when the run game was shut down. And Clifford wasn't able to have his best game of the season, and that really led to that Illinois upset. When you look at Clifford this year, though, over 1,600 passing yards, 12 touchdowns, 5 turnovers, and 2 rushing touchdowns. And the number one thing for Clifford this weekend is to be efficient, and you have to create some explosive plays and avoid turnovers. Ohio State, as good as your defense is, they're going to get those handful of explosive plays to really move the ball down the field. You're going to have to counteract that by making some plays downfield on your own. You have to look toward your playmaker and Jahan Dotson on the outside, and he's going to be the X factor this weekend. Jahan Dotson is I guess cheesy as it is, or easy as it is to make this comparison, he's going to have a Rondale Moore type game where he just goes off for like some ridiculous stat line, just like he did against Auburn when he had 10 catches over 100 yards. Jahan Dotson and Sean Clifford have to be electric this weekend. The number one thing, though, for Clifford is his ability to attack over the middle of the field with his intermediate passes. That was the key against Auburn when I did that preview, and it ended up being the key for the game. 10 to 19 yards down the field for these intermediate passes, Clifford's completing over 63% of them for almost 700 yards, 14 and a half yards per completion, 6 touchdowns, and 28 first downs generated while having almost a 92 PFF passing grade over the middle in those intermediate routes. He's going to try to attack Ohio State in that second level and distribute the ball to his playmakers, avoid interceptions, and let his wide receivers go make his plays. And by doing that, you kind of empty the box out, and then you're going to have a chance to run the football. And that's going to be a huge factor this weekend for the Nittany Lions, as this running attack has to show up. And yes, you're probably not a rushing attack like we've seen that's going to put 250 up on the ground, but they at least got to get like 100 yards rushing this week. And I think that's the goal. If Penn State can rush for 100 to maybe 150 on the ground, they're going to have a chance to possibly win this game. You've got to be efficient with the run game to help Sean Clifford against a dangerous pass rush. And you cannot be one-dimensional and beat Ohio State on the road. Look at Noah Kane, 245 rushing, but he's only averaging 3 yards per carry with 4 touchdowns. And then Kevon Lee, 228, averaging about 5 yards per carry. Those are the two guys. But when you look at the advanced analytics about how this running game attacks defenses, they have really struggled in between the tackles running the football. The off tackle outside is really where this rushing attack has thrived. That means that teams have been able to set the edge, load the box, and the Nittany Lions have been in trouble in terms of running the ball. The rushing attack has to have their best performance of the season this year against a P5 defense, or things are going to get real ugly in Columbus. When you look at their edge, rushes outside or off the edge, they're over 300 yards rushing, over 5 yards per carry, and 4 touchdowns. But then no other gap. You look at the A gaps, B gaps, all that, no other gap or rushing direction has above 100 yards for the season, and none of them have above 2 rushing touchdowns for the season. So this run game has to be better this weekend to help Sean Clifford and this offense be a bit more efficient this weekend. Now, quickly, the matchup to watch for me is the Ohio State defensive line against this Penn State offensive line, because the Nittany Lions offensive line has to step up in a big way, not only to aid the rushing attack, but you got to keep Clifford clean in the pocket this week. And you saw what he could do against Auburn when he doesn't get touched. Only 4 incompletions, and he led Penn State to a big win. But this dangerous pass rush for the Buckeyes is not that Auburn front seven that you face in Happy Valley. When you look at the O-line, though, for the Nittany Lions, they've played really well this season. They've been efficient in pass blocking, but their run blocking aspect of the game has really been lacking. Not a single starter for Penn State has above a 69.5 run blocking grade by Pro Football Focus this season. The unit, though, in the passing attack has only allowed 9 total sacks, 6 quarterback hits, and 70 pressures this season through 7 games. That is not bad production. That's solid production up front in terms of pass blocking. And the bright spot for them has been the guard spot. You look at Juice Scruggs and Eric Wilson. They're the 2 highest graded offensive linemen for the Nittany Lions, both starting at the offensive guard spot. They've only allowed 1 combined sack, 1 QB hit, and 13 pressures through this season thus far. That's going to be key because Ohio State has some really dangerous guys on at every level of this defensive line, on the outside, the inside, nose tackle. They got some playmakers. So the tackles are going to have to step up for Penn State, and they're going to have to generate some sort of rushing lanes for this running game and make sure Sean Clifford isn't getting killed back there in the pocket. When you look at this Ohio State D-line, they can get after the quarterback. 24 sacks, 34 QB hits, and almost 100 pressures this season through their first 7 games. They've had a big rotation due to injuries, due to some, they've been rotating guys in and out. But when you look at Haskell Garrett, that's going to be a key with 4 sacks, 8 pressures from a defensive tackle spot, which makes him a huge factor. And then also Tyleik Williams as well has been a guy that has really stood out for me. 5 sacks, 10 QB hurries, and is the highest graded pass rusher for the Buckeyes and one of the highest graded in the country. And then you look at Tyke Smith possibly coming back this weekend and getting that starting spot back. And then you still have Javante, Jean Baptiste, and Zach Harrison on that D line, along with Antoine in the middle there. So I mean, they got a lot of guys they're 8-9 deep on that D line, not even including a Jack Sawyer who has a bunch of potential as he was one of the top 5 players in the country coming out of high school last year. So this defensive line can get pressure. They've shown a bit of promise stopping the run, I guess, down the stretch because Oregon really tore them apart. Minnesota did early in the season too. They've been playing better. They're finding out who plays together well, but they're going to keep fresh bodies in there. And the offensive line of Penn State has to keep Clifford clean this weekend. Now, when I look for a prediction, man, a few weeks ago, this line probably would have been single digits, and a lot of people probably thought Penn State could compete with Ohio State. Right now, man, I have no trust in the running game of Penn State, and I think being one-dimensional against Ohio State is really a death sentence in Columbus, especially in prime time with this defense fired up to prove that they belong in the college football playoff, because right now they're on the outside looking in. I expect Ohio State to pull away in this one. I just think that offense is clicking at such a high level. It's probably close early, but I have the Buckeyes pulling away in the second half, 45-20 over the Nittany Lions. So a big win for Ohio State. That really is their statement game to say we are going to be contenders down the stretch, and we've come a long way since that Oregon loss. And then James Franklin's going to have to go back to the drawing board. Penn State has some winnable games down the stretch. I just think this weekend they're a bit overmatched on the road in Columbus. So I got the Buckeyes 45, the Nittany Lions 20. Guys, like I said, if you're new, smash that subscribe button, hit that like button on the video, man. I appreciate the help. And comment your score predictions below and let me know your takeaways and thoughts on this huge Big Ten game this weekend. But guys, we'll be back tomorrow with some more college football previews. But for right now, the Blue Bloods are out.